Here's how I see the news today. All right. You've got, you've got President Trump surviving an assassination attempt and creating one of the most iconic photos and moments of all time, leading even some Democrats to say, I got to vote for that guy. That is a superhuman kind of strength that we all witnessed there. You can have that guy, or you can have the guy who falls up the stairs trying to get onto Air Force One, who can't keep his words together, who can't spit sentences out, who has to go to bed at 8, who can only work 4 to 6 hours a day. I mean, truly, like the contrast could not be more stark. And then he comes into today with the RNC about to, get going. It's going to be a celebration of Donald Trump, and finds out that the most problematic of the 4 legal cases against him is done. It's dead, at least for now, and probably forever. And that could also affect Jack Smith's role in what's left of the January 6th case, which was already on life support. Today, in just a matter of moments, he's going to be announcing his vice presidential pick, which will imbue the campaign with another round of enthusiasm, not from the media, not from the left, but from Republicans, no matter who it is. Some will be a little disappointed, some will be excited, but net, these things tend to have a positive, uplifting effect. And against all that, what you have on the Democratic side is President Biden, before the Trump shooting, holding a conference call with angry House Democrats who are saying, get out. We can't win with you. And reportedly so inept on this call that I'm going to repeat what Jake Sherman of Punchbowl News reported. During the call with the Progressive Caucus, the president said out loud that his staff had passed him a note to, quote, stay positive, you are sounding defensive. Biden read the note aloud to participants on the call. I'm sorry. And then last night from the Oval, he got out there and tried to strike this conciliatory tone. Let's go for unity, and continued to screw up his words. Instead of saying, we'll decide our differences at the ballot box, repeatedly said at the battle box, and the transcription person at the White House. There's just, and here's the end of my synopsis. Now there's reporting via Axios that some of the top senior leadership among the Dems who were most rabid about getting Biden out have resigned themselves to the reality, in their view, that Donald Trump just won this election, that he's going to get a second term, and that there's really no point in expending any more further political capital in trying to get Biden out, because the conclusion here, in their view, is foregone. I mean, they know what it's going to be. So what do you make of this chain of events and where it leaves us?
It's just such a knot to untangle, but it's really the most remarkable state of affairs, I think, in modern American political history. It's crazier than 2016, the night that Donald Trump actually won the election. I think right now we're in a moment that's actually even crazier than that, because as you just laid out, Megyn, the sitting president of the United States had a cognitive breakdown in front of the entire country. The last 2 weeks have been spent with donors actually revoking, saying they are not giving more money to the Democratic Party. You have high-profile Hollywood stars, Democratic lawmakers saying that they can no longer support the sitting president of the United States, not because of policy differences, but because he is too old. He is not capable of handling his duties. And then on top of that, you have this historic moment, as you just laid out, Megyn, of the former president of the United States getting shot in the head, just grazing his ear, obviously, but being millimeters away from death on national television at a campaign event. And all of this is playing out as that former president goes into the pomp and the circumstance of the nominating convention. And so just psychologically, Megyn, I'm trying to imagine what it's like to be Donald Trump right now. You survive by millimeters in front of the entire world. A bullet actually hits your ear. Those iconic photographs are snapped. And then you head into Milwaukee with a huge legal weight just about off your shoulders, a vice presidential announcement to make. And Donald Trump obviously revels in this type of pomp and circumstance. Mm-hmm. And then you're being coronated as the Republican nominee. I mean, you have to imagine that the trauma almost has him, going back and forth, oscillating between the trauma of that and the stress that it can put on your life, but also kind of walking on air with all of this politically, personally laid out in front of him this week.
I've been thinking about that picture we just showed with the fist up in the air, this iconic picture with the flag overhead and the Secret Service trying to get him off stage, the blood on his face. And I think Donald Trump's whole life, in a way, prepared him for this moment. You know, he is incredibly strong. He is a fighter. In the fight or flight contest, fight always wins with Donald Trump. And it's, of course, made him controversial. I mean, I have been on the receiving end of some of that myself, and it can be somewhat alarming for those who find themselves on the wrong side of him. But net, it's what made him president. It's what made him, incredibly rich and successful. It's what made him not roll over and, get into the fetal position when he got indicted 4 times. It's what made him an effective president. It's what made him stand behind Brett Kavanaugh when no other sitting president would have stood by that guy being accused of being a serial rapist by these loons who we didn't necessarily know were all loons at the time. Donald Trump didn't care. He stood by his nominee and he got him onto the bench. All of it. And it's what made him able in that moment to raise the fist. Not only that, but he's a natural born performer. He hosted the #1 show on television for a decade. He's really talented in front of the camera, has a natural showman's instinct for what works. I've told the audience before, he always sits down in an interview and says, the lighting's like this. What about this? There's a shadow here. Move that. He understands, almost like a reality show would, that there's a camera on him at all times and that it matters how he behaves. And on top of that, Emily, you've got his connection with the UFC. And before that, the WWE. He loves going to these events where it's raucous and it's rowdy and it's rough and going into the ring, pretending he's in the fights himself, the showmanship of that and what people like to see in a battle, a physical battle where people could actually, throw blows and all that. So he's sort of got a lifetime of being around conflict and understanding how to own the moment. I just think all of this fed into this extraordinary thing we saw where actually under fire, he was able to maintain his composure, his strength, his messaging to the people, raise his fist in defiance and say, fight.
The WWE point is fascinating. And on top of that, I just want to add what a lot of people have already heard on the audio that was being picked up by the presidential mic that was still on after Donald Trump and the bullets were flying by him, flying towards his ear and all of that. You heard him say, let me get my shoes. And many people have pointed that out at this point. But I think it was a very, very conscious effort on Trump's behalf to understand. He had cameras rolling right in front of him. He turned to the crowd very intentionally. He didn't just mouth fight into the Secret Service people's face, into their heads as they were covering him. He intentionally sort of, you can see this, maneuvers himself so that he's looking out at the crowd and saying fight. He wanted to have those shoes on. He told Byron York, after Byron said it looked like you wanted to keep speaking, he said, yeah, I did, that Byron had picked up on something accurate. And that's no surprise. And that's when you mentioned the WWE UFC point, that really, I think the images of somebody with blood streaked across their face and a fist up in the air, that parallel it's almost eerie, Megyn.
Mm-hmm.
But it was very much Donald Trump knowing that he had cameras on him, that there were video cameras and that there were actual cameras. And it's reality television. And the last point I would make is that he's extended the reality television onto Truth Social as well. He has been reacting like we see people who are in the public eye do, not presidents so much, but he's been reacting, dictating through reporting. We know he's been dictating his Truth Social posts about all of this. He posted one not long after the shooting, a couple the next day, just kind of bringing people into his mindset like he typically does. Sometimes it gets him in trouble. Right. Sometimes it works really well for him. But in this case, I think it's been working well for him because it's inviting people into the moment with him.
It matters. I've heard Charles C.W. Cook, who I love over at National Review, not a Trump fan, say many times fairly that in some ways Donald Trump might not be the most effective spokesman for America. In some ways, he can't go in depth on our historical importance and our founding fathers and all. I mean, if he can, I've never seen it. So I understand the point. But he gets the visual and the strength of our country and how that should be portrayed in our commander-in-chief better than anyone. And that matters too, especially because the other choice couldn't be weaker, both physically and cognitively, and just in his presentation. You know, you have the chance to send this guy bloodied up with the fist in the air to go stand up to Xi and Putin if necessary, or you've got the other guy who, I mean, truly is only working a smattering of hours, needs to go night-night by 8, and is at the point now where his own staff is referring to his big boy press conferences, because this one he's actually going to take questions off prompter. That's just, one is provocative and one is scary to our adversaries. The choice could not be more clear. I can't wait to see the polls, to see how this event has affected people who were on the fence, right? That small group that we all said, well, they're not going to vote for Trump now. By now, they know Trump. You know, he's got a ceiling. Or does he?
Yeah, and Biden is clearly trying to get himself in front of camera. And I think that's his only choice, given that his sort of dominant characteristic right now, as people perceive him, is weakness, is frailty. He wants to project this image of leadership, that he's on top of the situation. We saw those photographs actually from the Situation Room released after he was briefed with Vice President Harris. And that's what he's trying to do. And I think that's really his only choice. At the same time, though, he can't get through an Oval Office address without saying battle box, without saying former Trump instead of former President Trump. So it might not be serving him well, because it continues to emphasize the split screen. I don't know if you've seen this meme that's pinging around, Megyn, but it has Joe Biden versus stairs. It's a picture of Joe Biden falling down. And then next to it is a picture that says Donald Trump versus bullet, of a picture of him standing up with his fist in the air. That's stuff that's pinging around TikTok and the memosphere and pop culture world is going to be really powerful. I suspect, like you do, that it's going to show up in the numbers. And Joe Biden doesn't have any other choice. There's nothing he can do to mitigate that going forward. And the RNC has been, in this sort of Trumpian way, prepared for the moment that Donald Trump now is going to take advantage of. It's in Milwaukee. Again, I'm from not far from Milwaukee. This is intentionally chosen, brilliantly chosen for Republicans. We can't take for granted how smart of a choice it was to hold this convention in Milwaukee. He has the Teamsters president speaking. He has the mayor of East Palestine, Ohio speaking. And they also, remember, even in Butler, Pennsylvania, they were at a farm show. That's where he did this rally.
Do you ever think, how can I work this hard and still be in debt? The piles of overdue bills, the threatening phone calls, never having money to do anything. If you are trapped in debt, Done with Debt can be a way out. They have developed aggressive new strategies to end your debt permanently. Done with Debt stands between you and the harassing, annoying bill collectors. Who wants to deal with them? They tirelessly negotiate with your creditors to lower or even forgive what you may owe. And they do it all without bankruptcy or new loans. One client said one phone call saved us a fortune. I only wish we'd done this long ago. Done with Debt has unique strategies to get you out of debt faster and put more money in your pocket every month. But you need to hurry, because some debt solutions are time sensitive and you don't want to miss out. Visit donewithdebt.com. Talk with one of their debt relief strategists for free. What do you have to lose except your debt? Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.